14-year-old you that's making these decisions is thinking that you're making the right decisions. It doesn't become a mistake until it's in the rear view, which you've looked, something happened, it didn't work out. I thought this was a good idea. Turns out it wasn't, right?
Welcome, friends, to the Budo Brothers Podcast. My name is David, and joining me, as always, are Eric and Kyle, founders of Budo Brothers. You guys ready to go?
Absolutely.
Let's hit this.
All right. We're going to put on our time-traveling goggles, and we're going to look to the past for this episode. And in particular, I want to start you off with a question. I want to know something that you learned, anything, any topic or anything like that, you learned from somebody who has come before. Give me something.
So that's what I love about what you just said is that's actually the definition of a sensei. Sensei, like the Japanese translation, is one who has come before. One who has gone before. Who has?
Yep.
They've crossed that bridge. They've gotten over obstacles. They know shit that you don't know. You know, like they are a sensei because they've gained that wisdom, that knowledge of going down that path. Right? And that's what's so valuable about learning from senseis, people that have gone before, learning from other people's experiences. And the best part about today's day and age is that you don't actually have to know them. You can lock in, you can read books, you can go and subscribe to YouTube channels. You get direct access to some of the brightest minds on the planet.
Absolutely. Kyle, give me something.
So what instantly came to my mind was being about 16 years old and thinking you are the king of the universe. And I remember looking at my parents like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, you don't want to go out and hang out with friends and like do stuff and party and do all this. Like, I'll never, ever in my life stop like wanting to do this stuff. And then all of a sudden time kicks in and you realize like, oh my gosh, my parents were right. Like, I don't want to party with my friends all the time. Like, I don't want to be around people all the time. Like, you get more stuck in your ways. You figure out the things you like to do. Your bullshit meter is way less. Like, you know what you like. If somebody's around you and they're talking like a way that you don't like or doing stuff, it's like, I don't have time for that anymore. Mm-hmm. But when I was 16, like, you're looking at your parents like, you're just a bunch of old people. I'm never going to do that. But boy, did they know.
And what they knew was it's actually the simple things in life that are actually the best. That which we chase, that's what we got to go party. We got to be these cool people. We got to do this. You got to, when you're 16, 18, 20, 25, you don't even, like, it's all part of the journey. And what's so interesting when you look at your parents and you're like, I could never just want to stay at home and eat a nice dinner around candles and just drink wine. That sounds boring. I want to go to the club.
Get twerk.
Right?
Get twerk.
But that's exactly when you start to go through all of it. And after you've been dragged through the mud of life, you start to appreciate those very simple things, which they figured out and you just couldn't understand.
Totally. And the lessons on friendship, and actually a big lesson that I see is our generation talking to the younger generation about social media. We were fortunate enough to know life before social media and we saw its rise. Mm-hmm. And we also, from experience, understand that whatever you put on it is permanent.
It's for life.
That is a record.
Forever.
You are there doing that forever. Uh-huh. And who you are at 16 years old,
I'm glad social media was not around.
And in your 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s are completely different people.
Totally.
But now, like, when you talk to a younger person, be like, I don't know, man. Like,
probably shouldn't post that.
I don't know if that's the one you want to go with. Like, but okay. So just even that knowledge, giving it to people is like, you're not going to be the same person in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
And it's so hard. Like, how can you tell that to someone who thinks they have life figured out? Because we all did. We all were that person. We all were that people that couldn't understand what the hell our parents were talking about.
Totally.
Right.
And here's a mind, something that'll mess with your mind. Imagine what the three versions of ourselves at an older age will say to the three idiots sitting here talking into these microphones, thinking they got it figured out,
Right.
and just speculating on a whole bunch of things. Like, if we could skip forward 10 years, imagine the things that we could tell ourselves in the past. But at the same time, we have the ability, because of all this record, to look at the past and not make mistakes in the future.
Learning from it. Learning from your past.
One of the things that I've had a very difficult time doing is finding a mentor. I read in a few books that, some of the most successful people say it's so important to find yourself a mentor to help you get through obstacles and to help you speed the time it takes for you to achieve your goals. And I just have never found a good mentor. So what I've relied on is using the past, reading books on people, reading stories that people have say, and using them as inspiration and education in order to make future decisions. Cool. One of my biggest martial arts heroes is Muhammad Ali. And for whatever reason, I really just resonated with him and his character. He was a guy who was so confident and sure of himself and pushed that edge of being like overconfident and cocky, but at the same time just so loved and respected.
Absolutely.
And I learned from him that if you stick to your craft, it can transcend everything. He was a boxer who you'd consider just an oaf of a fighter. And he was not only like taking political stances, making movements for different things, but he changed the way people view life. All by mastering his craft and being confident in himself. I couldn't imagine the confidence it would take to go against everything and go to jail for something you believe in. Whether you believe in serving in the military or you don't, that's not the case. He knew that a decision he would make would put him in jail in the prime of his boxing career.
Right.
And he was not willing to sacrifice his self-belief for other people, and he chose to serve time in the prime of his boxing career. Wow. And I look at that and I'm like, how can someone be so sure and so confident in themselves? That self-belief that I believe in myself so much that it doesn't matter. I'm turning out all the noise and just doing me. I try to channel that when I'm having struggles with thinking about the bills or how are we going to afford the next run of products, or when times get tough, I take those stories and those past experiences, even though I've never met him, I take that and I channel it and I try to use it for myself to make good future decisions.
And that's what's so cool is that those people are your mentors. You say you don't have, I haven't had a mentor. Obviously, there's a difference between having a mentor that gives you feedback, but you can use mentors that you don't even know, right? Muhammad Ali might be on your personal board of directors because you can learn from his life experience and understand what advice he would be giving you because you have learned from him as a sensei, somebody who has gone before, who blazed a trail that has never been blazed, right?
So here's a question for you. You talk about personal board of directors. Now, it doesn't need to be martial arts. Right now, from past icons, let's say, who is on your personal board of directors?
Oof, man. I have a lot. Obviously, first and foremost, my mom and my dad are my prime board of directors. I mean, straight up, they have guided me. They brought me into this world. So of course I refer to them as much as I can. And I'm blessed to have a good family unit. But professionally, if I look at all the mentors that I've had that have helped me get into my career and got me to where I am, the senseis that I've had that have helped me get through some of the toughest parts of my life, the friends that I've had that have always been there when shit gets tough, all of these people, you may not know it, and I know that there's a lot of people that don't know it, but they're on my personal board of directors, that I confide in them, that I reach out to them, and they're always there. Kyle, you are on my personal board of directors. You are one person in my life that I can always confide in, right? And like that's what's so awesome about what we have, is that we are each other's mentors. You know, we're in trench warfare together.
Yeah, definitely. David, do you have anybody that stands out in your mind on a person in the past that's really sculpted your decision making today?
But there's a lot. Now, in my family, I'm the youngest by 10 years. And so, like, just because of that, kind of everybody was trying to tell me what to do the right way, even though I didn't want to listen. So there was that. And so you kind of learned, you know, I learned a lot of things that way. Now, my oldest brother was he was an electrician and in the Navy. And so he would work on submarines, and then he ended up getting into like commercial electrician work and everything like that. And so when I bought my first house and it was time to gut the entire upstairs of the house and rewire everything, he was able to come over, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to get electrocuted. You know, and he's somebody that I was able to learn from, you know, and sure enough, he gave me the older brother crap of like, oh, sure, you can do it, you know, that dumbest way possible and that you're comfortable with, or you can do it my way. And, you know, I learned how to do it his way, obviously, and got skilled at it. I also think there's an element of you as an individual need to be on your own personal board of directors. I'll give you a quick story on this. So I had a student in my dojo. I started teaching her when she was 8 years old. She just turned 8, and she is going to be turning 16 within a year. So I've known this girl for half her life, and you know, trained and everything. And she was one of my perfect students, right? Just always there, always enthusiastic, never missed a class, and maybe didn't adapt, like, you know, didn't pick up on things faster than some other students, but was the hardest worker in the four walls. Now, dojo closed. When she turned 14, she had some personal issues, and it was rough on her, and she made some really poor decisions and everything else. And we still maintain, you know, we still stay in touch. She leans on me as her sensei, even though the dojo's been shut down for over a year. And I was talking to her, and she said, you know, I wish that 15-year-old me could go back in time and tell 14-year-old me that I was making a mistake. And I said, listen to me right now, because what's happening is 14-year-old you is telling 15-year-old you not to do that stuff anymore. And I think it's really important for us to look at our past experiences and say, okay, that, you know, that 25-year-old me made these mistakes. And if I'm listening to that person right now, I'm not going to make those mistakes again. And I'm going to be a better person for it. And if we ignore that stuff that happened and just tend to fall into those patterns and do those same things over again, well, then we're not really learning from ourselves too. So I think there's an important element of history and past with other people, but there's another equally important element to it, which is your personal past and making sure you listen to it and don't repeat the dumb stuff you did.
Right. And what's interesting about that is that 14-year-old you that's making these decisions is thinking that you're making the right decisions. It doesn't become a mistake until it's in the rear view, which you've looked, something happened, it didn't work out. I thought this was a good idea. Turns out it wasn't, right? I thought stealing something was going to be good because I didn't have to pay for it. Ooh, well, I learned, hopefully, right? Like,
right.
It doesn't become, you don't take action unless you've made the decision that is a right course of action for me to take, whether justified or however you have in your own mind, it doesn't become a mistake until you can look at it in the rear view because you did not like the results from the action.
Right.
So it's tough. Like, can you blame you also have to be like, yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know but now I know that, and I have learned from my past. Therefore, I've grown. Therefore, I have become a stronger and more powerful human being. And that is what life does to you. If you can take those lessons that life throws at you through the form of challenge, pressures you to change, make decisions that you don't know if they're going to be right or wrong, and again, until you look in the rearview. But all you can do is adapt and iterate and start to course correct until you find that optimal zone where you are executing at your purpose. You are doing what you're brought here to do.
You know, I don't think we realize, too, as people, that how much we lean on the knowledge of others who have come before for every little... For so many day-to-day things that we do. You know, take, for instance, starting a YouTube channel, right? You don't just turn on the camera, post it, and you're like, good, like, here I go, and I'm going to be popular now, right? I mean, some people try it, and it's not going to work.
Of course.
But what do? You go on there, and you're like, okay, let me look up people who have done this, and what are their tips, and what are their tricks, and what have they experienced, what have they gone through before? Let me see all of the mistakes that they made, because they're sharing them. And let me not do that. And let me create this the right way and structure it the right way. So I'm using the hashtags as appropriate. So I'm, the theme of the channel is consistent. My brand is consistent. All of those different things. You've had to have learned that from somebody who's had some success.
Exactly.
And that'll apply to absolutely anything. So give me a lesson you learned from somebody when you started Budo Brothers. So what was something that you looked at that had happened in the past that you're like, okay, we're going to do it this way because of that lesson? Is there something you can point to?
Absolutely not. And the reason being is because it was completely fresh. We didn't want to go imitate anybody. We didn't want we didn't say, oh, we should go do this. We should go do that. We were just like, we wanted to learn. We wanted to grow. We wanted to chase our passion. We wanted to learn as entrepreneurs, and we wanted to go serve the community. Yes, there was North Stars. We're like, man, look what Lululemon did. What if we could do, let's learn from that past and see if we could do something in our market.
Yes.
Inspired by it.
Yeah, yep. Inspired by, but that wasn't the impetus. It was like a calling that we both had, that we're just like, we got to do this.
And on the content side of things, we did take a look at martial arts content that was out there and how it was being conducted, and the egocentricness in content, and how you had to be the best ever.
Right.
We didn't resonate with that. And so we just didn't like the message, and we would read the onslaught of negativity that those videos spewed out, that we're like, we're not going to do that. Like, right. we're going to avoid this at all costs.
Let's be perpetual students.
So we made it a mission to always come from a place of learning and sharing in the content we create.
Yes.
Little throwback to that white belt mentality, right?
Yes.
There it is right there. That's right.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, though, is it's one thing like learning from Lululemon and learning all these positive experiences. But I used to work at a hospital, and I was maintenance. One of the best jobs I've ever had. I drove a golf cart around like a boss, and would just avoid work by parking at the top of the parking lot and getting some sun for hours.
Clever girl.
But there's this old man I used to work with, and he was the grumpiest hunk of leather I've ever met in my life.
That's awesome.
This man was, mind you, working labor at a very old age. But he had so much resent, regret, and just negativity within his soul. And I looked at this guy working with him closely for so many days, and I'm like, I never want to be you. And I listened to him, and he would always blame things on other people. He would never take ownership of any of the jobs that he did. He would always think that the world is just after him.
Victim.
A victim. Constant victim mentality. That's the perfect way to put it. And I said to myself, I will do everything in my power to never be like that. And it was huge. It was a thing in a past experience, but it was the opposite. I got to see what living a certain way was like. It was
fighting life.
Yeah. It was a snapshot into like, if you conduct your life in negativity and resentment and hate, this is where you'll end up.
Grumpy ass old man.
Yeah. A leatherback.
But look, a life lived which didn't take, he never took responsibility for his condition where he's at, didn't change, didn't adapt, didn't respond. That's the difference.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of things, you take a look at when we went to the Century Martial Arts Super Show. I know we've talked about this before, but the president of Century,
Paul
Webb, and how he conducted himself and handled himself. As a
gentleman.
As a senior to us, we were looking at him and Leon as well too, and we're like, this is how you should conduct yourself. And they have the classic traditions in them of that old school business, that old school vibe, built on handshakes, relationships, respect, reputation, chivalry. Like that doesn't exist anymore. It's like,
especially now,
likes and shares and like influencers and
look at me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like
post that.
Like, remember when you were an influencer back then was like your reputation, your influence on other people and what they said about you behind your back.
Right.
Was it good things or was it bad things? It wasn't like, oh man, this guy's got 300,000 followers. He's an influencer.
Right. So you learned a lot.
Definitely. Like, you can learn from negative experiences and positive experiences. I think, though, that we should put up the red flag, though, and say your past can also handcuff you.
If you attach to it.
It's learning from it and attaching to it are two different things.
100%.
Because
tell me about that. Right, let's explore that a little bit. What do you mean? Let's dive in. Like, what do you mean by that?
If you've had experience in your past, in particularly negative ones, they can dictate how you respond in the future if you hold on to them. So if something in your life happened and it produced a negative result, let's say public speaking. When you were younger, you went up in front of the class and spoke and you said something stupid and the whole class laughed at you. And you hold on to that past experience and think, man, I'm a lousy public speaker.
And you define yourself.
And you define yourself from that one experience. You're attaching to that. Whereas if you took that experience and say, man, like, that was a learning experience. I learned that I should be more prepared, or if I should practice my lines more, or whatever the case is, or you know what, I didn't like feeling that way. I'm going to put in work in order to make sure that I'm improved the next time I do it. That's learning from it. And attaching to your old stories are a good way to not grow.
And limit yourself.
Right. It's a bit of an anchor on your foot, so to speak. You know, preventing you from moving forward on it. So let's go a little bit more into learning from past on this. Is there an event in the Budo Brothers past that you look back on and you continually learn from? Give me an event or something that happened in terms of business that that you look back and you're like, okay, that was a lesson and I'm learning from it, and this is what we're doing moving forward?
I got something. Eric and I get really excited.
Easily.
And so we can sit here and have an idea and just bounce it off each other. And like,
Amazing.
we just keep escalating and like, before you know it, we're like jumping and yelling and spinning in a circle.
It's
like,
gonna be
This
awesome.
is it. This is the best idea ever. And without fail, eventually we get corrected.
Flop.
It's just the boat capsizes and we get corrected.
And it's so funny because it's always the time where we're so sure that it doesn't. It's usually the opposite happens when we're so certain that like, this is the one. It's gonna go viral.
And it's
Sad trombone.
That trombone for sure.
and we're good because Eric and I have very different personalities. So normally we'll keep each other in check. So like when he's super pumped up, I'll be like, oh, well, okay. Or when I'm super pumped up, he's like, do you
What
really
about
want?
this?
Yeah. But when we both think it's a good idea,
That's where we get into
there's
trouble.
nobody to stop it. We need to like phone a friend.
We should have a
Yeah.
phone a friend like, hey, we both agree on this. David, will you be our phone a friend?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
Oh,
Because
man.
when we both think something's a brilliant idea, very rarely does it work out. So it'd be cool. We could call you, be like, we're dialing a friend. We both agree that we're
Yeah,
way
that's-
too
no,
excited
it's
about
fine.
this.
And sometimes you could get lost in your own world.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is such a tangent, but I got to bring up this story. We're at the airport one day, and this group actually it was two guys, and they had a similar haircut, and they're walking down and they're wearing like the same type of shirt, right? Like it was like a collared tight fitting shirt, and they both had the same type of thing. And Eric looks at me and he's like, man, look at those two idiots wearing the same shirt, walking like that.
Same haircut.
Same haircut.
Same,
what
same.
What a bunch of idiots. And I'm like, bro, we're literally wearing the exact same shirt right now. Like, come on.
I was like, when you're right, you're right. When you're right, you're right.
You get in this your own isolation chamber, and you forget that to point and take a look at yourself
The
before
obvious.
you go cast judgment.
Totally.
But that's like a snapshot of our echo chamber.
Yes, exactly.
that's a good one. I mean, you're not learning from the past. You guys still wear matching shirts all the time, but at
Always.
least you're not like making fun of other people about it. So that's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
You learned. That's
Learn
all
and
right.
grow. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a Budo challenge
Ooh.
in relation to learning from the past, because we covered a lot here: learning from family, learning from people that you don't even know just by looking things up and trying
Yeah.
to gain experience,
Reading books.
reading books, learning from a sensei, finding a mentor, like all of these different things. So where do we go to challenge somebody to learn from the past? What do you got for me?
I think taking a look at there's so many hidden gems in your own life that most of us haven't tapped into. A lot of the people in our lives that have gone before us, that are further down this path than we are, have a lot of wisdom and have a lot of knowledge. This week's Budo Brothers challenge is to reach out to somebody that you, either they're in your family or they're close to you, but they have a history. They have fought some battles. They have started, they have tried, they have failed, they've gone bankrupt, they've made millions, they've fill in the blank. Reach out to those people and just learn from their past and see what nuggets of wisdom and knowledge you can extract.
That's good stuff, man. Those lessons are all around you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have a cool exercise that I used because I ran into that issue with finding a mentor. And it's a really powerful trick in order to summon old experiences and put them into your day-to-day life.
Okay.
So what you need to do is to close your eyes and imagine yourself in a completely empty room. And what you do is you envision that there is the best, most amazing circle around you. And you could paint that circle in or make it look however you want, whether it's like rising up or different colors, or if it moves, you envision it as your space. And then what you do is you think of past times in your life where you were operating in ways that you were proud of or that you admire. Or if you can't think of those, think of people or superheroes or whoever you idolize certain traits about, and envision those traits and start bringing them into the circle. So for me, it was Muhammad Ali, that courage and belief in yourself, and you pull that into your circle. Maybe you could envision an athlete who has strength and you pull that in. You can pull in all of these things and envision it filling that circle or that space around you. And then saying that I can take all of these things, all of these traits, and walk around with them all day. Because you have access to those things. They're all within every single one of us. If somebody has done it before, so can you.
That's awesome, man. That is some deep stuff right there, right?
Beautiful.
Love it. All right, I think that's a perfect spot to wrap up here. Any final thoughts on learning from the past?
The past is a beautiful teacher, so let's learn.
And when I was younger, I learned don't pee into the wind. I was not just joking.
You learn from the past. Everybody's tried it. Everyone's tried it.
No,
real quick in closing though, I want to ask, like, do you guys look at old quotes or quotations from people that have inspired you and things like that? Do you hang on to little quotations? Do you keep them aside? Are those part of your past lessons?
I love to read quotations and get little snapshots. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how impactful words are, and how they can mean so many things to like a lot of different people,
and how they can stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I read a good quote or get inspired, I'll even put it into our Instagram feed. Like I'll just say whatever I was thinking, or Eric, powerful. I know you do that too. You just post a little snippet of an amazing human who's been before, and you just hope that those however many words can change a person's day.
Well, I'm gonna give you guys one that is near and dear to my heart, and the quote's from Ayn Rand. Ooh. And it is: the question isn't who's going to let me, the question is who's going to stop me.
Nice,
love that.
And that's always one that resonated with me, because it hits on that, man. It's like, who is allowing me to do the things that I want to do? Nobody is, but who's going to stop me? You know? And so that's where I go. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Some closing thoughts on how people can find us all over the interwebs, and go.
Well, we have been doubling down on our YouTube content. So if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you are missing out, because we are all in. Facebook, Instagram, and our mailing list. If you're not on our mailing list, we have doubled down on the content we're sending our mailing list as well. So be sure to join. Go to our website. You can join our list, and you'll get all the bonus content that we send out regularly.
Awesome. All right. Follow us on all the things and all that kind of stuff. Contact, say hi, ask questions, engage, and all of that. Gentlemen, I will see you on the next episode.
Catch you then.
See you soon.
Alrighty. Yep. Bye-bye.